But anyway, this whole thing started with rape and abuse of power and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, what happened with this police officer? Because like I said, you know more than me. He's your mate.
He's not my mate.
Sorry.
We're not friends.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it came up on the news today that a guy called David Carrick was a police officer, and he's been charged, I believe, 12 different rape cases over the course of 2 decades, 20 years. Like, he's someone who was in power in this country, right? He's in the police force, and they're saying that he abused that power to get into the position where women were vulnerable, and used that to, you know, obviously rape women. And well, one, he was doing it for 20 years, which is a long time to kind of, nobody knew about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, in the police force, like.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, true, but it could have been, it could be buried. But like, what I was trying to get at is that it's hard to believe that no one.
Yeah, I categorically don't believe. I don't trust the Met as far as I can. I got friends that are police officers. Don't trust the Met at all. They are totally different people when their uniform's on versus when it's not on. And I refuse to believe that nobody knows about it. And obviously, with him being, he wasn't like a super senior rank, because I heard someone talk about this on LBC. He wasn't a super senior rank, but so the person called into the radio and said, with him being in the police force for so long, he's going to hold a lot of weight. And they were saying the reporter, being a very lateral thinker, someone that always said you're too much of a lateral thinker. The reporter was a lateral thinker. She's thinking, well, his rank isn't senior. And the guy was saying, just because your rank isn't senior doesn't mean you're not a big figure in that. Do you know what I mean? There could be somebody that's a big figure in the Man United dressing room that isn't necessarily a captain or something like that, but they've been there for a long time. They hold some weight. Even
if you look at like the corporate world, if you've been in your role,
people
have been in their role for a long time. They may not have moved up, but they're still tenured. So like, you know, if you want to get trained at something, you're probably going to ask the guy.
Yeah, there's people that hold more weight on the sales floor than the sales manager. The sales manager is the manager and might make the final decision, but they might defer to that experienced person that's been in that company for a long time. Do you know what I mean? So this person will have a lot of, and the longer it goes on, the more incentive the police have to bury it, because the longer it goes on, the more they go, damn, we're going to look bad. Let's bury this. Let's keep burying it, and eventually, obviously, it comes out. But yeah, what a scumbag.
But it doesn't look good for the police force, does it? That you have someone in your ranks who's supposed to be, obviously, you know, enforcing the law. That's actively breaking it and taking advantage of his position.
But I mean, we all make jokes, don't we, about police officers that like, oh, you must have been bullied in school and stuff like that. But that joke is not necessarily rooted in truth, but it's rooted in what people mean by that is you're just somebody that wants to get some power to abuse it. Do you know what I mean? That's been a stereotype of police officers, especially in the Met. I live in London. I can't speak to other police forces, but in the Met, the amount of people that you meet who want to abuse their power, especially people that are on the beat, so to speak, the people that move into the police officers that I've met in my experience that work in specialist units are pretty good. But they would have to have been there for a while to move into. Do you know what I mean? I've come into contact with people in the child protection team or different things like that, and they're really, really, really good people. But they're not the people that you're going to call 999 and get them to your house. Do you know what I mean? It would have to be something really niche for you to come into contact with these people. But the average cunt walking down the street is just it's just a knob. Large proportion of the time. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't really have many interactions with the police. I just have like a really neutral opinion on them. I've not really come across them. Like, even if I'm just like, you know, walking in the street and they're just kind of, you know, patrolling or whatever. I haven't really had any conversation with police officers. So for me, I just had a really neutral view on them. But I guess I kind of, in my ignorance, just blissfully trusted them to do their job and do the right thing.
I think most people do. Most people in Britain who have never come... You can see a direct correlation between how much people come into contact with the police to how much they dislike the police. And that isn't just people that are committing crime, that's also victims of crime. On LBC again today, various women called up and spoke about... This woman called up from Canada and said she lived here, she was married to a man here and everything, and he sexually assaulted her. And based on how the courts went about that, she left. She lives back in Canada now. She's taken her child and she's gone. She said it's down to, she's a white woman, so it's down to the criminal justice system. And so much, when you're young and black, people don't take you seriously in this regard, because they think you're committing crime, so you've got a dog in this fight. But so many people that I know me and you know somebody that, well, you know through me, but somebody that's a victim of domestic violence, she has no faith in the police. When I used to work at William Hill, my old manager Simon, middle class white guy, never committed any crime. He hates the police because of all his work interactions with them. Most people that come into contact with them are not very complimentary of the police. Do you know what I mean? In any society, the only time that I meet people that are neutral, people like you that just don't come into contact with them, they are really.
But is that in a sense like kind of like not the nature of their job, but you know, they're kind of like they're enforcing the law, so they're kind of not the bad guy, they're the good guys, but like when they're interacting with people, they're normally interacting with you because you're doing something wrong in their eyes. So
but I'm saying,
do you know what I mean?
But I'm saying, I'll just give you 3 examples of people that are all on the receiving end of crime.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the William Hill,
the William Hill managers only called up to say we've been robbed or someone robbed them if the guy doesn't like them. The woman is a victim of sexual assault from her husband, she doesn't like them. And then my friend is a victim of stalking and sexual assault from her ex, and she doesn't like them. So these are not people that are committing crime. These are people who are victims of crime, and it's part of the police officer's job to be able to be tough when they're with criminals and then be able to do the opposite when they're with victims of crime. That's part of the job is not just chasing people down the street and putting them in cuffs. That's a small percentage of the job. You have to be able to do other things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
although, sorry, I just, as you were talking, I was thinking of one interaction. It's really tame with the police, but I was a little kid, but I was in the car with my mum, and she was just dropping me off at school, and like we were coming up to a roundabout. The police officer was on the other side, and we were on this side. So like obviously when you're on a roundabout, like you drive, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, you do. You know how to drive. So there's obviously you give way to the right, and she's on the other. There's obviously 4 exits of this roundabout. She's on the other side. Look to the right. There's no car. We can go. We go. Police car comes round and starts following us, and then my mum was like, "Oh my god!" And then she was like, "Oh, she's come all the way around, and now she's following pretty closely." Then she starts flashing us, and we're like, "Oh shit, we're getting stopped." So my mum pulls over to the side, and the police officer comes over, and she asked my mum to roll down the window, and then my mum's acting all coy, you know, she was just like, "Oh, sorry, police officer." Anyway, the police officer turns around, and she basically was like, "You do know that you should have given way to us there." And we were like, "But you were on the other side of the road." And she said, "Yeah, but if my siren was going, you need to give way." And it's like, but your siren was not going, and you were on the other side. So it just, that kind of like led into that, when you're talking about a power trip and wanting that status, it felt like she just wanted to tell someone that, 100%. Look, when I'm on the road, you give me right of way. And it's like,
coming from where I come from the council estate and stuff, it's so important. The advice I'd give police officers is that your first engagement with a person, like Dom just said, is going to set the tone for how people are going to view the police overall. Dom might not remember the woman's face, he might not remember exactly what hair colour she had, whatever, but you're going to remember she's a copper. You remember the uniform if you don't remember the individual person. And so when you next meet a copper, that will be in the back of your mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, I got stopped and searched. I don't know if I told the story before on the podcast. I got stopped and searched when I was going to like a booty call when I was younger. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was getting the night bus to this girl's house, and I just chucked some underwear and some condoms into a bag. And
that's all the essentials.
So the guy got this three police officers come up to me. I'm wearing black Converses, black jeans, black hoodie. And they said, someone's just been robbed. Everything. That's it. So he goes, someone's just been robbed for their phone. And the guy was wearing apparently he couldn't see the details, but like black tracksuit, black trainers is all we've got to go on, right? A black guy as well. So I was like, okay, cool. And the 2 guys, 2 of them were really, really nice to me. And they were like, look, I was going to have a quick look, blah, blah. They said, where you going, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm going to see this girl. They went through my bag, found underwear, condoms, started laughing. They were like, oh, good lad, started laughing. Then at the time I was gymming quite a lot. So I had a picture on my background on my phone was my back tense to my muscles. And he goes, I was boxing at the time as well. And so he goes, yeah, obviously this is your phone. I don't think you would have stolen the phone and put yourself as the background. Do you know what I mean? So they were just cracking banter with me all the way. And then when they patted me down, he goes, oh, you're quite stocky. Like, you know, what do you do? And I said, I box and work out and stuff because he was into his training. So he starts talking. So he goes, oh, you're quite muscly and that. And the third guy comes right into my face, I swear to God, and goes, well, we'll see how tough you are when I CS gas you in the face, mate. Me and the guys were just... And the other...
CS gas?
Yeah.
What the fuck
that's
is
that? That's not the tear gas.
Is that there?
Yeah, that's the spray. The spray.
But why would you say that? There was no...
And the other 2 officers, he was older, and the other 2 officers just looked so awkward, because they look like they wanted to say, "Shut up, mate,"
Yeah,
but he's obviously their boss.
Yeah.
So they can't.
He's
so,
the more
so,
senior
so,
one.
so they're stuck. They're stuck. And I was just like that. So after that, my whole body language changed. So now when I snatched my phone back and I snatched my bag back, and I was just like, the whole energy around this environment has now changed because of this one idiot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
and
they were cool. Like my was night bus, so they didn't come very often. So the bus was there, and they said, "Oh, we're gonna have the person drive past and in a police car and identify if it's you or not." I said, "Cool," but they actually held the bus for me. So they made the bus wait. But then everyone's there on the bus. Look at you. I don't know if you've been stopped and searched. I doubt it. But
I've had a random drug search.
The embarrassment of being stopped and searched is that everyone looks at you afterwards like you're a criminal. So obviously the person's driven past, and they said, "No, it's not you." And the nice guys went, "Cheers, mate. Have a good night," and that. So I jumped on the bus. But now everyone on the bus is staring at me.
You,
Even when I was with my first girlfriend, she was quite religious, and she was like big into her family. Well, she wasn't. She was filth, but her family were religious. So she, but they
didn't believe in sex after marriage, obviously.
Sure. So, but the point is, her family and their friends were big in the local church.
Yeah.
So I got stopped and searched randomly once, but her family friends that I recognised from church were walking past across the road. I haven't done anything wrong, but it just looks really, really bad on me, despite the fact that I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's why, because I hear loads of people say like, "Oh, if you ain't done anything wrong, why do you want to not engage with the police?" I know people that's had drugs planted on them and different things like that. People I know categorically don't do drugs, don't sell drugs, don't do drugs, and the police officer search them and miraculously there's some coke in their bag or something. It's like, that's, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not having that. So for us, coming from where we come from, we just try to disengage with them, period. Because you see so many people say, if you didn't do anything wrong, why are they running? Where I'm from, if the police try to chat to you, you're running. I'd rather run and gamble I can get away from them than have any engagement with them.
Yeah, but doesn't it look worse?
Yeah.
Like it almost, wasn't there a guy?
But we don't trust them as an institution. That it already looks, from the moment they come to talk to me, it already looks bad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So this is the problem that we have again with some of these women. They are looking at an officer being near them since like the Sarah Everard thing and all the that kind of stuff. They're not looking at an officer and feeling safe. They're now looking at an officer and thinking, "I want to get out of here."
Yeah.
Where they should look at an officer and go, "Relax.
Yeah.
There's a police officer nearby." Blah blah blah. And it's like, not to take away from the rape victims, but for us as young black men, it's a bit of vindication because we're like, finally, we've been telling you for 2 decades. That's how we feel.
Yeah.
And it was all like, "No, why are you running away?" And now when Beth or any of these girls see a police officer at night, they're like, "Fuck that, I want to get away."
Yeah.
That's how we felt for ages.
Just
because I'm running a gamble. I would rather just go home and be safe at home than gamble any interaction with you. What positive is going to come out of this interaction? Nothing. It can be negative or neutral. Do you mean? So I'd rather just get out of there.
Yeah, and
it does make you look guilty for sure, but I'd rather get out of there.
Yeah, well, there was that case, wasn't there, where I think it was a Brazilian guy in in London when there was the tube bombings. Yeah,
they shot him on the tube
because he started running and they shot him and he was innocent.
Yeah,
but it's just because he started running.
Yeah.
Although
he's also a tourist, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't know. You don't know what's going on. You just also like the police start shouting police and they pull out guns. And also with society being the way that it is, if you're on the tube and everyone starts running, you'll just get up and run.
Yeah, and it's also not normal in the UK for them to pull out their guns.
It's a bit more normal when there's been a terrorist attack. It's not.
Yeah,
I'm used to it because I've worked in the city for a long time, so I'm used to it. But yeah, you're right. I think the first time I went into the city and they had guns, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, normally like they don't even have. Wasn't there like a rule where they couldn't have any handguns on? They had like a baton and like tear gas or pepper spray.
That's still a rule now. Only certain.
Allowed.
Yeah, police officers don't carry guns.
Yeah,
only certain units. So CO19 units are the armed units.
Yeah,
If they've got a gun, there'll be a CO19 unit.
Yeah.
And they'll have a Glock and a machine gun and a rifle.
Yeah.
But after, I will say, like, being in London after, we've gone off the rape topic again, we have to bring it back up. But being in London after terrorist attacks, that's the only time I felt safe with the police.
Well, yeah, that's
what I saw them walk in, they give you that little nod, like, we've got you covered. And I was like, thank God you're not here.
That's the specialist unit you were talking about.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
That's not like the typical officer that you see, like the normal Tom, Dick and Harry. This is a guy that's a level above that's probably gone through extra training and he's only...
Do you remember when I was at football? Were you there when I had a fight with Ben?
Ben, is this the Duracell bunny?
Yeah.
I don't think I was there.
Bro, this
I know. I think I was there before that, and then like a couple of weeks later, I was like, oh, he hasn't come for a couple of weeks.
Dude, it is this guy. We were playing football, and this just goes to this this stereotype, because it is a stereotype. Even myself, I've had loads of bad interactions with police officers, but still, it's probably a very small proportion of police officers.
Is he a police officer?
This is what we're coming to.
Okay.
Me and Ollie, I don't know if you remember Ollie, the guy with the long hair.
From Surrey Lions?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
We got into a 50-50 challenge, and we were arguing about, is it a foul or is it not? Friendly argument, me and Ollie get along perfectly well.
Yeah.
Ben comes over, and he goes, this fella thinks he's hard, doesn't he? Talking about me.
Yeah.
So I was like, what was that? And he comes, because this guy's just an idiot. Like, he's always making little comments, but he never says it out loud. He's just proper sly with it.
Yeah.
So he comes up to me, and he bogles over. Police officers like to bogle. He bogles over.
One second. What the fuck is bogling? I'm not
struts. He sort of struts over. He's giving it the shoulders.
I've got a catwalk vibe.
He proper catwalks over. Honestly, he proper.
You know, in betweeners when Simon's doing
this is what he does, right? Let me get into character.
So I'm watching.
This is what he does, right? He walks over and he goes, "You do know, I am in fact a police officer."
He didn't say it like that.
Ask anybody that. I promise you.
But why would
Exactly.
What's the reason for that comment?
Exactly. What's the correlation?
Your tea is going all over the place right now.
It's fine.
You're getting vocal.
What's the? What's the correlation? What's the correlation between us arguing at football and you being a police officer?
Yeah.
What's the So I was like, bro, I don't care if you're a police. If anything that was going to happen previously
is still
going to happen now. The fact that your police officer doesn't change anything. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're a bum. So I just ended up cussing him for like 10 minutes because I was like, bruv, you're a bum. Like, Jimmy, look at your highlights, bruv. Look at you. I started cussing him. Yeah, and he supports Tottenham, and it's just the whole thing's a mess. He supports Tottenham as well. Yeah. So anyway, then I found out after the game that he's not a police officer. He's a community support officer.
Oh, well, he's one of them ones.
He's a BCS.
Yeah.
He's not even an actual police officer. But that just speaks to exactly the stereotype.
Yeah, about
because there's a bunch of guys that play football that are police officers from the old lot. Like, I'm not going to name them on camera, but loads of them, 4 or 5 of them are police officers, and they were like sergeants and inspectors. You wouldn't know that because they don't bring it up.
They don't have to. Yeah, but who does? Like, no.
You know the police officer that plays with us on Mondays.
Yeah.
Them man don't know he's a police officer.
Yeah.
He doesn't bring it up. But this guy, who's the lowest ranked of all of the police officers that we know, decides to give it the big one, and he's not even a full-fledged police officer.
It's normally
that is so the psychology of these guys.
That feels like a sense of insecurity, though. Like, to have to like bring it up. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like someone who wants to feel like an inflated self-importance. Like, they might 100%. Just say, "Oh yeah, like I've got a Gucci," or like I've got a.
But that's what leads
Rolex,
them.
Do you know what I mean?
That's the psychology that leads them to committing these crimes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if he's committing these crimes, he's been found guilty of how many counts of rape?
I think there was on the article there was 2 different numbers, but there was one that said 12 rape victims over 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there was another.
The thing is, for me, if you're somebody that breaks the rules, you're somebody that breaks the rules, right?
Yeah.
So if he's committed 12 counts of rape across 20 years, what else has this guy done?
Yeah. Well,
what else could he protect? How can you trust him to go and take down a drug gang, go into a flat and find $1 million in cash and not pocket some of that?
Yeah.
How can you trust this guy for every single case? It won't happen because the Mets are shambles. But every case this guy has ever, how can you trust him to not be under pressure to find this local drug dealer they might be looking for and not fit someone up? How can you trust anything this person says when he's out here raping, on average, 1 woman every 18 months across a 20-year period? You can't trust anything he says.
You should probably go back through all his cases.
Absolutely.
Now that he's been, found guilty.
Yep.
And sentenced to prison.
100%.
You should probably go back through all his cases, anywhere that he's had a hand in it.
Yep.
Investigating it, and actually do your due diligence.
They won't, because the Mets are shambles. But if they had any self-respect, every case that him and Wayne Cousins and all these other weirdos, because if you commit rape, you're a weirdo. Like, I'm not trying to hear nothing about no childhood trauma and all the rest of that. We've all got trauma. You are a weirdo. You're a very strange, troubled individual. And they should go back and check every single case this person's ever touched across 20 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they won't.